Do you want to learn how to write an ebook fast and easy? Well, I've got you covered. In this video, I'm going to take you from the point of researching all the way through writing your ebook. I'll even discuss the pages you should include in your ebook to make it easy for your readers to navigate. I also want to let you know that this is the first video in a multi-part video series where I'm going to be taking you from the point of researching and writing your book all the way through the point of creating, designing it, selling it online, and finally promoting your ebook so you can get the maximum amount of sales possible. Let's get right into the information. So whenever you're creating an ebook of any sort, you want to make sure that you have already clearly identified your niche and that you know who your ideal customer is, because your ideal customer is who you're actually creating the ebook for. So what you need to do from that point is to begin the process of researching some topics that your ideal customer is going to be interested in. So let's say for purposes of this example, your niche is hibiscus care or hibiscus flowers or something along that. And you've already identified your ideal customer. So you started creating some content around that. Maybe you've done some videos. Maybe you have a blog that talks about this. Maybe you have a Pinterest account that's set up where you talk about hibiscus care. Or just perhaps you're sharing information on Instagram or even TikTok where you talk about tropical hibiscus flowers. So since that is your niche, it just makes sense that you would create an ebook that focuses on that topic. So for purposes of figuring out what the ebook is going to be about, that's where I'm going to head over to this website called answerthepublic.com. So with answerthepublic.com, what you're able to do is to set up a free account, and then you can do 3 searches daily using major categories, if you will. So you'll notice here that what I've done is I've typed in the words tropical hibiscus because the recommendation is that you use just 1 to 2 words to get the best results. And once I do that, what it will do is to tell me information about that particular category. So the first thing it's telling me is that 3,600 people are searching for that on a monthly basis. The other thing that it's going to do is to break the information that people are searching for down into specific categories. In this case, it's going to talk about questions. It's going to also move into prepositions that people have typed into search engines to get information around this category. And it's also going to talk about comparisons. So things like versus or and. It's also going to talk about the or categories. So what this is essentially doing for you is accumulating the information regarding this topic into one area. It's doing a few things also. It's showing you that people are interested in this topic. And most importantly, what it's doing is it's giving you lists of the questions that people are asking. So this is really golden information and can be used in order to come up with the content that's going to go into your ebook. So based upon the information that we saw over on Answer the Public, it looks to me like tropical hibiscus care would be a great ebook to actually write, particularly if you've been creating content around this topic for a while. Now we're going to move into our next phase, which is where we're going to start to gather the content that should go into our ebook. Let me show you how I go about the process of starting to organize the information to include in the ebook. So the first thing I'm going to do is to use something that we've all been hearing about, and hopefully you've even started using it. It's called artificial intelligence, or AI. Now, I don't suggest you use AI to completely write your book. What I suggest you do is to use AI as your idea buddy. Think of it as a really smart assistant that has the answers, but you have to give them some information in order to get back the information in a format that's going to be usable for you. So what I'm going to show you, you can use, any of the AI tools that are out there. The one that comes to mind probably for most people is ChatGPT. But lately, the one that I've been using and getting great results with is Gemini. It's a Google tool. So the way that you can begin to use Gemini is by just simply going in. If you have a Google account, all you have to do is go to gemini.google.com and then log in, and you'll be able to use it. Now, I've created a really great prompt that I'm going to feed into Gemini in order to get back the information I need. Now, what I'm looking for at this particular stage is to create an outline for my ebook. And this is how I'm going to use Gemini as my idea buddy. Let me show you how I go about that process. Now, what I would do is just simply type in the prompt here, and I've done that here. Now, here's the first thing I want to share with you, because sometimes when I talk to people, they'll tell me that they don't get the greatest results with using artificial intelligence to get back the information that they need. And what I typically ask them is, tell me how you're prompting the AI. And in most cases, people will tell me that they're giving like 1 or 2 sentences. Well, that is not an effective prompt to get back what you're looking for. Here's an example of the prompt that I put in. I essentially am telling ChatGPT what I do. I'm telling it that I'm creating an ebook for people that are interested in learning how to care for tropical hibiscus flowers. I want to include specific information, and this is the type of information that I have gathered using Answer the Public. So you kind of get to see what it is that I'm looking for. Now, before I finish my prompt, I always include, please confirm that you understand my request, then go ahead and create the outline. So once I put this prompt in and I hit submit, now what's going to happen is it's going to give me back an answer to my question. First of all, yes, I understand your request. And secondly, it's saying, here's an outline for your ebook on caring for tropical hibiscus flowers. Now, here's what I want you to see. When you give it a great prompt, this is the kind of information you're going to get from it. So it's going to say, you know, it's going to give me my introduction. It's going to talk about selecting a healthy plant. It's going to talk about creating the perfect environment. All of these can essentially become your chapters for your ebook. So if you'll notice, it's going to go through and give me a full series of items that could be included in my ebook. This is how you should really use AI as your idea buddy. So what I'm going to do is highlight all of this information and then copy it into a Google Doc. I like to use Google Docs for the purposes of writing the ebook because it has, you know, it's easy to access. It has the autosave function in it, so you don't have to worry about losing things. Now, this is not going to be the ultimate place that I'm going to create my ebook. It is just simply going to allow me to gather and capture all of the information in one place. So if you'll notice, what I've done is I've just copied that outline into a Google Doc. The next thing that I'm going to do is to create another document where I'm actually going to begin the process of writing my ebook. And what I do is I simply take the items that are listed here and then I begin the process of writing. So I wouldn't use AI to write the ebook. I would just use this to really become, you know, for example, prompts for me to write. Because again, if it's something that you're knowledgeable about, being able to write this information shouldn't really be all that difficult for you. I like to say when you're creating an ebook, you should really be able to put your own personal experience into it. That's what's going to differentiate it from you writing it versus someone else writing it, or you writing it versus allowing AI to write it, which is just going to just grab a bunch of stuff from the internet and pull it in. See, I feel like the reason why your ebook will be successful is because you can add your own personal experience to it, and you can share tips and tricks and so forth that you would put into it. So for example, if I was going to be writing this topic and I talked about, let's say, sunlight requirements. Well, I've been growing tropical hibiscus plants for a long time, so I happen to know that they do extremely well in full sun and they need a whole lot of water. And what I would do is I would just simply talk about my personal experiences as it relates to writing about this particular topic. I also know that, for example, tropical hibiscus plants do extremely well in very hot temperatures. So these are things that, again, if I was going to be writing this ebook, it wouldn't take me long to write it because I would just simply take the topic and write about it from my own personal experience. So another thing that I suggest you do is to also include a frequently asked questions section into your ebook. And so the way that I would do that is once again by using AI to do that. So I have another prompt that I've created where I essentially say, I'd like for you to provide me with 20 frequently asked questions that people that are new to caring for tropical hibiscus flowers might have. Because a frequently asked questions section is a great section to include in your ebook. And in order to get the information for that, I would just simply go down here. I would paste that into Gemini and then just hit enter. And if you'll notice, I've even asked it to give me fact-based answers for this. So as you can see, what it is doing here is it's giving me the questions and then it's following up with an answer. Now, one thing that I can tell you is that some of these items that are going to be listed are already going to be included in your outline. So you may have covered them at that point. The reason why I do this is I like for it to, for example, search for questions that perhaps weren't included in the original outline. And so, for example, does my hibiscus plant need high humidity? Well, I don't recall seeing that anywhere on the initial outline. So it's a great way to either jog your memory or just to have some questions that you can put into your frequently asked questions. Now, typically, if I were going to be writing the ebook, I'd probably include about 10 questions, but there's nothing to stop you from including all 20 of these questions in your ebook. So as you can see, using AI is a great way to help you formulate your outline as well as to look for questions that you can include in your ebook. As I mentioned earlier in the video, I also want to make sure that you're aware of the pages you should consider including in your ebook. What I've done is I've created just a simple ebook layout here, and you'll see the different types of pages that work great to include in your ebook, from a cover page, a table of contents, definitely an About Me page, and then you can do your chapter headings, your content pages, of course, and then if you want, you can even do sections if that makes sense for your ebook. What I also recommend that you include are going to be things like final thoughts or your conclusions. You can put in a resources page. And definitely you want to have a next steps or a call to action. You always want to have your readers do something next. That might be subscribing to your email. It might be following you on a specific social media channel. It could be, check out my next product. Whatever the case is, you just want to get your readers into the habit of taking the next step. Now, once you have all of the content that you want to include in your ebook identified, the other thing that I recommend you do is to come up with a great title. Now, your title should be descriptive of what your reader can expect from the ebook, but it also should be, something that is captivating or scroll stopping, or, something that really makes people know that they have found something that can help them. And so one of the ways that I like to do that is, you guessed it, AI. So I have created another prompt that is going to be used in order to help me come up with both a title and a subtitle. So what I'm going to do is to copy this, and then I'm going to head back over to Gemini. And what I'm going to now do is to ask Gemini to actually give me some title suggestions. So I'm going to just simply paste in that prompt and then hit submit, and let's see what we get. So as you can see, Gemini is now thinking based upon the prompt that I put in. It has now confirmed that it understands my request, and it's giving me some titles. And if you'll notice from my prompt that I put in, I gave Gemini some parameters to work with. I said, you know, you can give me some catchy and fun titles, you can give me some informative titles, some SEO friendly titles, but I want both a title and a subtitle. Now, I think Gemini has done a phenomenal job of coming up with both titles and subtitles. If you'll notice, it's even categorized them by saying, you know, what's informative, what is catchy and fun, SEO-friendly titles, titles with a touch of allure, titles with a benefit, playful titles. It's come up with some really good items, and it's followed exactly what I requested, which was 20 titles and subtitles. So as you can see, using AI could be a huge benefit to you in terms of not only coming up with great content ideas, but also really expediting the entire ebook writing process. Now, one other thing that I think is very important that you should consider is whether or not you're going to incorporate a monetization strategy. Now, a monetization strategy for this type of ebook could be something as simple as including, for example, tools that someone who is attempting to grow tropical hibiscus flowers might need. So I might include things like pruning shears. I might also include things like pesticides. I might also include, you know, different types of planters or watering cans. So there are a lot of different ways that you could, in fact, monetize this book if you wanted to. Now, I will give you a word of caution, which is that if you choose a monetization strategy, it should not end up making your ebook look like a commercial for something else. Just include them as needed or where they make sense, and don't go overboard with it. Now, another way that you could have a monetization strategy would be having this be a low-cost ebook that in turn recommends a higher priced digital product or physical product. So that would be another way. But once again, you know, make sure that people don't feel like they bought the ebook and all that you're doing is using that to sell them something else. You want it to be deemed beneficial in its own merit, and if in fact it recommends some other things that people look at as being beneficial to them, then great. Now, you might also say you don't want to have a monetization strategy at all, and that is perfectly okay. Once again, you can just simply use a call to action that just gets people to further connect with you or perhaps join your email list. Now, once you've gone through the process of getting your outline and also coming up with the specific pages that you want to incorporate in your ebook, now it's time to just sit down and start writing. And so my recommendation for that is to look at your outline and determine what sections you want to include, what sections you might want to exclude, and perhaps you've come up with some things on your own that you'd like to have added to your ebook. What I suggest you do is block out a window of time when you can just simply sit and write. Open up a Google document and sit down, grab the section, add it in, and just simply start writing. Another suggestion that you can use as well is if you don't feel comfortable writing, you can always just sit down and record yourself, either video record or audio record, and then have those files transcribed. That's another way of getting the content down on paper. So just know that, you know, if it's your first ebook, just focus on getting just a few pages into the ebook and price it accordingly. If it's perhaps your second or third, or you're feeling inspired, then by all means write a longer ebook. Just keep in mind that what this is going to allow you to do is to really give yourself the opportunity to increase that know, like, and trust factor, and it's also going to allow you to be able to position yourself as an expert in your particular field. Now, keep in mind, this is a multi-part video series. The next video is going to teach you how to take the content that you've put together in the form of an ebook, and then what we're going to do is make it look very, very attractive using Canva. I'll see you in the next video.